All right, Megan. Cheers. We started off with the
Cheers,
cheers last time.
let's do the cheers.
Yeah, cheers to my first guest ever, and upon your glorious return to mental health with Logan Noon.
Oh, I'm honored to be back. I am super honored, especially now that you're super popular. It's super great to feel like, oh my god, I was the first person.
Oh wow, so I wasn't popular at first.
No,
like
you
everyone.
weren't.
Oh, well,
No.
I guess I'm
But
moving
now
in the
you're
right
super-
direction.
Now
Yeah.
you're super popular. Well, it is kind of cool. I'm listening to your podcast actually while I study sometimes.
I don't know how you do that.
Well, just maybe it's more of a distraction technique to me, but just
My voice is just super monotone.
it's monotone. I fall asleep. No, it's not monotone, so I don't fall asleep when I study. So that's nice. But
whatever works.
Whatever works. Well, it's just there's so many great stories out there, and so I'm excited to keep listening to them.
I mostly consume podcasts while driving or doing chores. For the most part. Every once in a while, I can kind of do it at the gym, but then I kind of get a little too bored. I have to do music at the gym.
Yeah, you need something more that's
sometimes when I'm running, I can do it, but if I'm lifting weights, I just like music. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Well, last time I remember, you were my first guest. We were a little nervous.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Got a little bit tipsy. Some liquid courage.
Yeah, that was a good time.
So I think today we're going to be more refined.
Yes, we're going to be more adult.
Seasoned veterans. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't listened, though, you were episode 2.
Episode 2.
Where we talked primarily about your OCD. So if you want to get to know Megan's OCD story, we're not going to go into that today, but listen to episode 2. That was a badass episode. Great job. Today, though, we're going to be talking about a newer diagnosis, ADHD. And I keep saying ADD, and I guess that's not even a thing anymore. It's like ADHD only.
Good question. I when I think of the two things, I kind of think of them as the same. I know they're not, but
yeah. Some people get super offended. They're like, it's ADHD, bro. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. I think yeah, for me it's ADHD. That's what it says on my script.
Yeah.
For my medication.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, let's kind of get into. So prior to med school, we're talking as OMS 2 students. So
we're second years now.
Both bottom of our class.
Yeah,
that's fine.
woo.
That's fine. Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
But doing positive things for the Pacific Northwest community. I don't get involved with the student government at all, but I know you're very involved. What's your position?
I am the executive secretary.
Ooh,
super exciting.
No.
But it's fun. I really like getting to know the deans of our school. I have nicknames for some of them now, which may or may not be appropriate, but they think it's funny. And I just like feeling connected in that way. And also, one thing that's been really exciting about being in student government is going to conferences and realizing, DOs are such a growing profession right now. And it's really cool to feel part of that change because as we do grow our numbers and how are we getting practicing rights and what can we do, everything like that, it's been super exciting to realize we have a big opportunity to make a change in medicine as DOs, especially because we're a newer, quote, profession.
Well, and I think both of us kind of exemplify this. We're definitely not on the top of our class academically, but I would also think that our student body would think that we're going to be very good physicians because you're very personable, very easy to talk to. I know you're interested in primary care. I think people would actually look forward to going to see you. And I don't know if people
and you too. I would totally go see you.
I mean, but people who would come see me are going to be in a lot of times depressed states. But hopefully it will at least be better than seeing other psychiatrists. That's what I'm at least going for.
Well, and also I think when you have gone through something yourself, it's way easier to be empathetic because you have been in those shoes where you did feel depressed and you know what it feels like to be in those shoes. And so it's easier to talk to people because you're like, I literally do know what you feel.
Yeah. And last year you were not involved in SGA, or were you?
No, I wasn't. Well, because I had failed too many tests, so I wasn't allowed to be part of it because of my grades. And so this year has been really good for multiple reasons, but one is my grades, I keep passing tests now.
Dope.
Because of Anki.
Oh, you use Anki?
Yeah.
I'm a big Anki man myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard that you're a big Anki man, so we should talk about that sometime.
That's my life. We can talk about it here. But
but
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because I want to now... so the listeners just sort of understand your experience. And I think prior to med school, we talked about, or prior to, on our last episode, we talked about your experience prior to med school a lot.
Yeah.
And then you got to med school, and you weren't doing amazing. And when did you actually get diagnosed with ADHD, and what was that like? And how did that what was the story?
Yeah. Well, so my senior year of college, it's back at University of Colorado Boulder. Go Buffs. I was talking to a psychiatrist about my OCD meds and such, and they said, well, you actually also might have ADHD if you want to get that further pursued. And at that time, I thought, well, I'm about to graduate from college. I don't know if I need to pursue it now. We'll see if it's an issue later on. And then took some time off from school.
Did you know you wanted to go to med school then?
I did. Okay. But through my last episode, I talk about the struggles I had with OCD, and I just kind of needed to get out of school and take some time for myself. And so I graduated with a degree in Spanish, but I knew I'd have to go back to school to do some of the prereqs for med school. So I graduated from college, joined the Peace Corps, did that shindig, enjoyed it, loved it, learned a lot, was like, all right, I'm ready to tackle this med school thing. So then I went back to undergrad to take OChem, biology, that type of stuff. And at that time, I didn't pursue an ADHD diagnosis because I was only taking a couple classes at once, and I felt under control. I didn't feel like it was a really big issue. But then when I started medical school last fall, and we were getting slammed with those SciPhom lectures and anatomy lectures and everything, I mean, I think everyone feels just overwhelmed, and it just got to the point where it was really intolerable. And I was like, well, if someone thought I had ADHD before, I'd like to see if maybe I actually do have it, and if so, if I can go get help for that. So that's when I contacted Dr. Staley, who's one of the school psychologists at our school, asked if I could take the ADHD test, and I took that, which was basically went into this room and there was a computer, and it looked like straight out of the 80s or something, because it wasn't like these thin computers we have now. It was like this big boxy computer. But basically, the first part was like, if there's a 1 or a 2, if there's a 1, click your mouse. And if there's a 2, don't click it. And they would flash the number 1 or 2. And then if it was 1, you'd click. And then the second part was you'd hear the computer say 1, 2. And if it was 1, you'd click it. And then the third part was for about 20 minutes. They would either flash up a number or say a number. And if they flashed the number 1 or said the number 1, you click it. But if they flashed number 2 or said the number 2, you didn't click it. So that's what that was. And then there was one of her colleagues, Dr. Staley's colleagues, was in the room watching me and taking notes as well.
Okay.
So then got that diagnosis back. Actually, originally I got the wrong diagnosis back, and they told me I didn't have ADHD. Then I went back again to talk about other stuff with one of the therapists, and they said, well, actually, you do have it. So I was really confused there for a while. But anyway, so I got the diagnosis, but I was initially really not sure if I wanted to start medication, because with my OCD diagnosis, ADHD...
Well, let's, before we get into the meds, I kind of want to just talk about just that test. The test just seems so weird to me, kind of. 'Cause it seems like it's very easy to intentionally fail if you want. Which I'm like, whatever. I get we have to be objective and try to measure like how ADHD is person X. And this, I didn't realize you failed the first time.
Well,
or not failed, I guess passed.
Well, I passed, but they gave me the wrong test results.
Oh.
Or they interpreted it wrong. I just remember I went in there and they're like, oh yeah, you don't have ADHD, but then the piece of paper they handed me did say I had it. So I went back and talked to them, and they're like, oh yeah, you do have it. So I don't know what happened with it. It's relatively moderate compared to some people, my ADHD. And the way I look at it is it's just kind of another part of the anxiety disorder blanket, with OCD for me being at the top and then kind of ADHD kind of being part of it. But I also think a lot of people have ADHD. I mean, we're all live in a society where we're kind of
checking our phones,
doing everything at once. And somebody once in one of our classes recently for depression said if the best way to figure out if someone's depressed is to ask them, are you depressed? And I feel like that might be similar for ADHD. Like, do you think you have ADHD?
Or it's just like, do you struggle to focus on certain tasks?
Or are you hyperactive? I think that's my thing, too, is I'm very hyper a lot of the time.
Yeah, certainly. And I remember back, probably about a year ago this time, so we were in the midst of our first year in that first biochem class. It was just a nightmare. And I remember, I wasn't doing very well in the class. And I was, talking to our counselors, and just like, they suggested maybe trying to find a study group or a tutor or all these other suggestions. And I remember even hearing stories where like, oh yeah, I would study with Megan the other night, and she's just like, she has so much energy, but she couldn't focus on one thing. And so it just almost did seem very apparent to me, like, yeah, Megan probably does have some focusing challenges. But yeah, I do think we all kind of have some degree of ADHD, and I think the more and more we get, just these younger generations, I think, are going to be even worse than us.
Oh yeah.
And we'll kind of get into that, and yeah. Okay, so you got that diagnosis of ADHD. And I know, though, you were, at least initially, you mentioned this in the previous podcast, like, I don't know if I want to take meds. But you lived that first year of medical school with the diagnosis. You knew you had challenges, but you didn't choose to take medication. So, like, what were you trying to do to treat that challenge?
I think just, just kind of trying to keep myself disciplined by, like, setting timers on my clock on my phone to be like, all right, let's try to really pay attention to this for an hour. And then you get 30-minute break and then another hour or whatever. But it wasn't really super sustainable. So I feel happy that I have found it.
You'd set a timer for an hour?
I mean, not an hour, like 45 minutes. I like when I can sit down for a long time because it takes me a long time to get into the mode, if that makes sense. Like, if I sit down, it takes me a while to... It's like me going to sleep. Like, I have a hard time sometimes falling asleep because I have to be able to, like, calm my, like, mind down so I can, like, focus or sleep or whatever.
See, I kind of use that similar method, but not for an hour or 45 minutes. I'll set a timer for 15 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. And I keep kind of doing that, and that's how I kind of stay engaged because, I mean, just all these stupid videos we have to watch, and I don't do really the readings, but I do a lot of flashcards until I'm, like, blue in the face. But if I did that for an hour straight, I would just go crazy. So I have to do shorter repetitions. So you said, though, like, was there anything else you were doing besides, like, setting timers, or were you meditating? Or? Oh,
yeah, definitely meditating, getting outside, skiing when it was the winter. Woo, so excited for that.
Okay, listen to episode, I think it's 5, Attention Restoration Theory with Tommy. Getting outside.
I think I did listen to
his
that.
ADHD. He chooses not to use medication.
Yeah.
So I'm always really interested to see, like, I think ADHD is the biggest mental health challenge in medical school. And I'm only really talking about our own class because that's what I interact with. But I imagine really everyone.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's, depression and even bipolar in it, but the biggest majority has to be ADHD. And so I'm always really interested to see how people treat these issues because it seems, the class of amphetamines is used properly in medical school, and it's certainly abused though as well too. So I definitely want to get into that. But okay, so you're setting a timer. It's sort of working for you, but not working great, right?
Yeah, it didn't work super great, but it was something I tried to do at least.
Okay.
I always study better with other people around me. Like, we're not necessarily studying the same thing, but some friends to be like, oh, what are you studying on Facebook over there? Or whatever. Okay. So just people that are like noticing if I'm not.
You don't turn into a chatty Cathy though?
Well, so a lot of times I go to the study cubbies at school. Because you're not allowed to talk in there. So, because I know that if I'm somewhere where you can talk, I'll talk. Although I'm usually getting better at not talking because usually I need to get shit done and get stuff done. So,
I personally, I like in the studio day, West Valley Yakima, as I call it.
Yeah.
This is where I like to study, and I just like to kind of be alone. Because if I'm around anyone, I just get distracted. Like, in those study cubbies at school, like, I'll see someone walk by, and I'm like, oh, hello. Like, and I can't do it. The cats kind of distract me. That's not too bad. I can kind of handle that. So, you, though...
I do the, like, oh, who came in the door? Oh, hey, what's up?
And you just said doo-doo.
Doo-doo.
Zing, we're professionals, sort of.
Yep.
So, you... Okay, so you were past all your classes, but except for one.
Yes, I failed anatomy at the end of the
second semester anatomy.
Yeah.
Anatomy was very challenging.
Yeah.
So was that kind of the catalyst for you that was like, okay, like I want to maybe now give medication a try and sort of see if this is really going to be beneficial for my studies?
Yeah, well, it was kind of a blessing in disguise type thing because I had already thought I might want to try medication over the summer, but I didn't really have a reason to try it in terms of using it for school, for academics. But it was a really great opportunity. So basically, we ended school. I knew I was so that was middle of May, and I had to start anatomy in June. So I went to my doctor beginning of June and just said, hey, I know we've kind of talked about this before.
Primary care doctor?
Primary care doctor, yeah. And just told her, hey, like, I'm really thinking about I would like to start some sort of medication for my ADHD. What would you recommend? And we came up with Ritalin because it's the best one in terms of interacting with the SSRI I'm on for my OCD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you, because, I mean, and I don't want you to name any names, of course, but there are a significant amount of our student body that uses some means of ADD, ADHD medication. Did you consult with any of them prior to that experience in June, seeing your doctor and just getting what they thought about their experiences taking meds?
Yeah, to a certain extent, just like how it makes them feel and what it helps them with. Asking what they take, but not really. I think, like I said, I think my main issue is the OCD, not as much the ADHD. Like, I know that's part of my kind of like spectrum, but like I still definitely kind of, when I think of my own mental health issues, OCD comes way more to mind than ADHD.
Okay.
But I also knew that because of different drug side effects and interactions that I'd have to work with my doctor with whatever worked better for combining with an SSRI.
Okay. So you start taking Ritalin.
Yeah, 5 milligrams, super small.
Is that? Okay, I don't, we don't do dosages yet in med school.
Okay, that's true, so we don't know.
Whoa. But, so I guess initially when you first start taking that med, I've never taken any ADHD medication. Never been prescribed it, never even taken it, because at the end of the day, a lot of people take this stuff when they're not prescribed it. I've never tried it because I've certainly been tempted to maybe even seek out a prescription, but I know I have significant anxiety issues. I've always heard it exacerbates anxiety, and I think it could affect my sleep negatively, and so I've just been really, really scared. And I struggle in school academically, so I think about like, maybe if I did, I've never taken the ADHD test. I'm like, maybe if I did, maybe I could improve my studies. I don't know. But I've always been super concerned that it's going to make my bipolar disorder much, much, much worse, and my anxiety most specifically. So how did it affect you?
So it will, so I started taking it 5 milligrams, so that's the least amount you can take. Okay. And I even had some friends, one of my friends is a PA, and she was like, you might not even feel it. And I took it, and I made sure I took it about, mine is, it's 4-hour half-life. Okay. So you take it, and it's basically gone in 4 hours. So for me, it takes about a half an hour to kick in, and I got about 3.5 hours before it goes away. And so at least that's in my body. It might be different. So yeah, I take it 30 minutes later. At first, at least, it feels like someone's like, all right, let's go, Megan, and like putting on a go cap, like, all right. And for me, I would we start studying in a coffee shop for anatomy, and I could tell that people were around me, but I felt less tempted to look around. Felt more like, okay, I need to do what the task in front of me. And one of my biggest issues, I think, with my ADHD has been, how do I even start studying? Because there's so much to study for. And so before I would, start studying something for 15 minutes and then get bored and then start something else and just never finish a task. And this helped me to be like, all right, we're focusing on this. And, so that was cool to feel like the momentum going and just being like, all right, let's ride this while we still have it. And also I was pleased. It didn't actually help me with my OCD to a certain extent, actually, because I would feel myself wanting to perform a compulsion or whatever, and then just my brain telling me, nope, you're not doing that right now because you're doing this, and this is what we're working on.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which was interesting because I was afraid it might make it worse. But actually, for those 4 hours, it was like, nope, let's take advantage of what you got going right now. Let's do this. And if it's still an issue in 4 hours and you're still worried about it, then you can worry about it. But right now, let's do this.
Now, do you take it every single 4 hours, or will you take it only when you need to perform something that requires focus?
Yeah. So I only take it when I need something that requires focus. Okay. So I didn't take it today, for example. So today we had 2 CILs, which for those of you listening, those are basically lectures where the professor talks and calls on people, and then we take a quiz at the end. And I found that it's not as good for me for lectures because I just kind of get jittery more than anything. And studying, it's much better. And I don't know why that is, but I think it's because I'm listening. I think it helps me focus to reading stuff and not necessarily listening and stuff. Okay. So I don't take it every day. I only take it on certain days. I try to take it before 2 p.m. so it doesn't mess with my sleep. Okay. Although I have fallen asleep while in the middle of my Ritalin
And sometimes with our test schedule, that's just, you're going to have to be up late studying. Well, that's good that you've had, I'm surprised I guess I shouldn't say surprised. I'm happy that it helped out your OCD, and I really didn't anticipate that.
No, me neither. And that was really only towards the beginning. So I took it this summer while I was taking anatomy, and then I made sure to take it, I still do this, half an hour before we start any test, I take it. So that way by the time we get into the test, it's going. Because they say you practice as you play, right? As you perform. So if I'm studying while on Ritalin, I think I should take my test while I'm on Ritalin.
Yes.
But now that I take it a lot more,
that actually is the same thing of like, I enjoy studying with music, but it's like in your test you won't have your favorite tunes on, like, so you have to get used to doing stuff that you don't like in silence.
That's true.
And so that's interesting.
Yeah.
And do you take advantage of, because I know with ADHD you do get a little bit more time with certain things.
Yeah.
Do you take advantage of that accommodation?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think that's smart.
Well, so I take my test in a different room with about 6 other people, and I get time and a half this year. I didn't get time and a half last year. I only got 15 extra minutes. And it's nice to have the time and a half. For me, it's all about being in the other room. I think sometimes it's better actually for me to not have as much time, because with more time, I'll doubt myself more. I'll have more time to do OCD rituals if I feel like I need to do them. But it's so nice being in the other room, because before it was like if someone got up, they finished their test earlier, or I would watch them. Yeah. The proctors going in between the rows, I would watch them. Yeah.
People are coughing.
Sniffling, coughing, whatever. It would just be a nightmare.
There was a poor girl at our test a couple days ago who I wish she got excused because she was so sick, because she must have coughed once every single minute.
Oh my God.
It was like big coughs. I was like, damn, dude, get this woman some water. The poor person, and I felt so bad for her. But it was also very, very distracting for me.
Yes.
Thankfully, it wasn't one of our more challenging tests. But yeah, if it was the second GI one that we have in less than a week, it would have been extremely, extremely challenging. So, okay, so you've had a very positive experience with Ritalin. Do you feel your ADHD now is essentially perfectly well managed, or do you still have other challenges that you face?
Yeah, well, I'm actually going back to my doctor over Thanksgiving to talk about if I should up my dose, because now that I take it every day, I don't find it works as well. There are mornings where I might forget to eat breakfast and I take it, and then I also have some caffeine, and then I'll really feel it super jittery. But for the most part, I think it does help, but I don't feel like it helps me the way it used to.
Does it depress your appetite?
Yes, it does depress my appetite. It depresses my appetite. I'm still sleeping really well, knock on wood. And the other thing people worry about or talk to me about is the low you feel after
the crash.
Crash. And so, if we need to do another podcast someday, if I get up on a higher dose, I'll be interested to see if that's the case. Right now, I don't feel a crash. I can usually be like, oh yeah, it's been 4 hours. I guess.
Well, I also wonder if a longer acting would have less of a crash, because it wouldn't be so sudden.
Yeah.
I'm talking out of my ass here, because we haven't taken behavioral health yet. And even then, we'll be second-year med students with 2 months of, not even 2 months, 4 weeks of behavioral health training. And I'm sure we'll spend all of 1 hour talking about ADHD. Yeah. Well, yeah, so I'm interested to kind of see how that goes. Yeah. Now, so in addition to medication changes that you're considering, and obviously you have had beneficial effects, though, from this, what other things have you changed about your behavior that have helped address ADHD?
Well, like we were saying earlier, the change in my scores this year, I think, has been a lot to do with Anki, which is, for those of you listening, it's flashcards, digital flashcards, but what I really like about it is you can either choose to say, I don't know this, show it to me again in a minute. I kind of know this, show it to me again in 10 minutes. Or I pretty much know it, but show it to me again another day. And to me, that's really helpful, because I'm a very kinesthetic learner, and so I, would write everything out, but then I wouldn't have time to go back through everything again. So I wasn't getting enough repetitions of everything. And why I like Anki compared to normal Quizlet or other things is it chooses what it shows you. And so
it sorts out the stuff that you don't really know.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's of course that active learning.
Yeah.
Now, do you make your own cards, or do you use pre-made cards?
Both. So sometimes there's somebody who was a second year last year who's a third year this year, he makes really good Quizlet cards. And so I actually just type his Quizlet cards into Anki. Now, I know there's a program that you can take Quizlet cards and make them into Anki cards.
You shouldn't do that.
But I do like the first pass of doing that.
I guess, but you can import in Quizlet in 10 seconds.
All right, well, you can show me that.
You're wasting time. Yeah.
You can show me that.
It's super easy. I've done that, but then I also don't trust people.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I've been using this Anki deck. You've probably heard of it, Zanki.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with Zanki.
They have a lot of questions.
It's so many cards. For this GI unit, I have 2,200 flashcards. And I'm just like, I feel like my entire day is consumed by doing Ankis. Like my left hand is normally how I do my cards. It's just like stuck in this position, hitting spacebar.
Yeah.
But I mean, that really for me has also been a big way that I've improved my efficiency, because I feel like I'm just always quizzing myself. Mm-hmm. And I don't do well with reading. If you ask me to read something and then recall it, I just won't remember. Yeah, and now I'm even finding I love videos much more than reading, but sometimes it's also really easy for me to zone out in a video. Yep. And so like my buddy Dan, he murdered his boards, and so he's kind of been like my coach throughout this whole process. And he's kind of a real annoying coach sometimes, because he knows my Anki login info, and he'll be like, like, I see you haven't done any cards the last few days. What's going on? I'm like, damn it, Dan. But he was one of my groomsmen at my wedding. Big reason why I got into med school. But yeah, he's
Logan got married.
Thank you.
I'm sure they know that already.
But so that's kind of what I've also been using that software quite a bit, and what I really like. So what other advice, though, would you give to some, maybe a first year who's listening, who's similar situation to you, just got diagnosed maybe with ADHD, maybe they're not even diagnosed, maybe they're just really struggling academically, and they're like, oh, maybe like, should I look into this? Should I go take that, whatever test, the 1 and number 2 test? What would you say to that person?
I would say, do it, because it's also nice to have that conversation with a therapist afterwards. Also realize that other people are in the same situation, and even something simple as, I have a friend who's a first year this year, and I was talking to him this summer, and he was worried about starting medical school and tests, because we had kind of shared the similar, like, we're, have test anxiety, and I suggested that he get the accommodations, and he got it, and I know that's been really helpful for him. And I think for me, that's been the biggest thing, is having just a different room where it's just much more relaxed environment. And not unfortunately, but part of the deal is you have to have some sort of note from a doctor saying that you need that. And so taking the ADHD test, you could get that if you needed that. And also, what was helpful for me is just realizing I wasn't making up the reason why I was having struggles. I mean, we all have different brain chemistry. That's kind of who we are and what we're good or bad at. But it just, I guess it's like, okay, this is, my special brain is doing this with me, which is beautiful and wonderful, but how do I make it so I can still be successful? And also, just don't give up if one study way doesn't work. Like, it took me until like a month into second year of medical school for me to figure out how I can study better. And between our first renal exam and our second renal exam, my test went up 20% with the new Anki method. So that was incredible to me, and I've been doing that ever since, and now I've passed every system test since then.
That's dope. Yeah, so, I didn't really find out how to really study until maybe about April of first year. Yeah. I felt like I was like, I kind of know what I'm doing. Okay, so let me ask you this, and I feel like on this show I'm going to do a lot of ADHD stuff just because I'm in medical school. It seems to always come up, and a lot of people face these issues. I've heard this quote before. I don't know if you've heard this. The class of amphetamines, which is Ritalin, is in one of those, and it's a stimulant class. It's similar to methamphetamine that you can buy on the street. I've heard it called the steroids of med school. And in many ways, you're an example of someone who's using it properly. It doesn't sound like you cheat on your doses. It doesn't sound like you're selling your pills. And so you're being proper. But obviously there's people out there who aren't. So how, though, would you, what do you, I guess, say about, calling it the steroids of med school? Do you think that's appropriate? What do you think about that?
I don't know. It's interesting. I can see why people want to use it, even if they don't have a diagnosis, because it is helpful, and it does make you feel like, I can get this done. But also some of us really need that extra push, because of our brain chemistry. So I think I would agree it is a steroid of med school, but just how some people need steroids for their arms or whatever.
Well, in many ways, I need steroids, quote unquote, to manage my moods. And if I wasn't able to do that, like that's how I just kind of look at it analogous. Like, look, some people do need it, and maybe some people who don't really need it do get beneficial effects from it. And I just get really concerned about patient safety.
Yeah.
Like if someone is taking too many of these pills, or maybe if they're on a different medication, and if they're buying the medication from a friend or whatever, like we just, even as second-year medical students, we don't fully understand these drug-to-drug interactions. So anyone who's out there listening who's maybe experimented with these drugs, I would just highly encourage you, just go talk to a damn doctor and get this figured out. And also though, I would just, anyone who's out there listening, I have heard negative side effects from the meds, and we've talked about it a little bit today, but the anxiety provoking. And I do think maybe even if someone in my situation was diagnosed with ADHD, maybe I could even get higher grades, but I know I would be probably worse off mentally. And I've even had friends who've been like, no, I would actually dissuade you from taking the ADHD meds because I don't want to see you have a worse mental health. Don't even really know exactly where I'm going with this point.
Well, what I would say in response to that is, I'll be interested to see if I do get a higher dose, how that makes me feel, because I definitely, depending on if I've eaten enough breakfast, if I had caffeine, I'll feel not short of breath when I take it, but I'll feel chest pressure. And I'll notice that my heart rate goes up, and I can see why people would feel anxious because of it.
Yeah.
So it isn't. Then you have to know what you can still do. Can you drink on it?
Yeah.
Can you, whatever. It's important because it is something that interacts with other things, especially if you have an underlying anxiety condition that could make you feel worse. So, and I have other friends who have a diagnosis of ADHD, but they choose not to do anything about it because they took their pills and they felt worse.
Yeah.
So either they'd feel okay for those 4 hours and then just would feel horrible afterwards. And like you said, it's a balance of mental health, and is this worth trying to do better if it's not going to make that much of a difference?
Yeah.
One way or another. So.
Yeah. And I try to remain really neutral because I don't know necessarily if it's better for, I know some of my colleagues who are diagnosed with ADHD, and they take their pills every single day at the same time, even if, maybe it's a Saturday and if they don't have to study. And then I know other people who, very similar to you, only take it when they feel they have to complete a task that requires a great deal of focus. And maybe it's also a task that's not that enjoyable. I think it helps out with that. So I just try to remain neutral, and I just also try to think the position we're in as student doctors, at the end of the day, we're trying to learn. And, we're trying to just gain as much knowledge as we can so we can help out our patients in the end. So whatever path that people end up taking, as long as it's a healthy path and still beneficial to their patients at the end of the day, I think I'm all for it.
Yeah.
As long as it's healthy, as long as it's not, selling these pills to other people and buying them when you're not supposed to really be prescribed. I do think it's fine, and I encourage people to go take that test or whatever.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So for me, one reason why I don't take it every day is, so in order to get my prescription, I have to have a physical script. And we live in Yakima. I'm from Olympia, Washington, and my doctor's in Olympia, Washington. So in order for me to get a script for that, I have to go all the way back there. And so this summer, when I got my diagnosis, and I took it for a month, and I checked back in with my doctor, and she said, "How are you feeling?" I told her it was good. She said, "I can only give you 3 prescriptions each for a month. And then you have to come back and visit me," which was fine, except I'm in school. So I've gotten 30 pills for the month of August, September, October, but we're coming up on November. So I don't take them every day because now I have enough for whatever I need in November. But if I did take it every day, I wouldn't have enough for that.
Yeah.
So it's also a balance of what will insurance pay for, because it is a controlled substance. How do you go around that?
Yeah.
So.
And I wonder, and I mean, who knows? I hope you know the answer to this kind of one day, but has there been any scientific proof that suggests that, kind of like you said, treating OCD with an SSRI and an ADHD medication is beneficial, like you felt. And like our psychiatrist may be starting to treat that kind of particular issue in this way, or maybe it's just completely anecdotal to you, and I don't know.
I bet it is anecdotal, because I was doing some research online, and they said, like, if you have OCD, be careful of taking ADHD medication. So we'll see. I mean, actually, something kind of cool happened to me recently. I signed up actually to be part of a trial of a new OCD drug.
Why is that?
So I am not going to actually do it now because it's based out of Tacoma and I don't have time to go over there, but maybe next year, because they actually haven't come out with a new drug for OCD in over 20 years or whatever. So they're trying to come up with a more specific drug for OCD. So we'll see.
I'm interested, or I wonder why, because I kind of have the attitude of, like, if it's not broken, I don't want to try to fix it. And so if I was in that situation and if I heard of a bipolar drug that just came out, I don't even know when the last one is, and I get, like, almost scared of, like, taking a new med. Maybe that new med could be less harmful to my liver, because currently valproic acid is metabolized by my liver, and I have to get liver tests once or twice a year. But I'm, like, honestly terrified to change it up, because I'm like, well, it's working pretty good now, and, you know, I don't want to try to throw a wrench into this. But so is your OCD not managed the way you would like, and then is that why you're trying to potentially seek out? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. They've come out with a lot more research about what actual biochemical processes are happening in the brain for OCD specifically, and I fortunately can't tell you exactly what they are.
That's fine.
But they are coming up with more and more research about it. So I think the hope is with these new OCD drugs, they can target that part of the brain better. Because like my OCD is it's fine, but it's not perfect. And I personally think, like I've said before, I think I need to go back and see a therapist and work through some stuff with them. Wanted to do it this summer, but I was in a bad place after failing anatomy and other things in my life. So I just was like, I can't open myself up to more emotional just hardship. And then also, I'm on Medicaid right now. Finding a therapist that will take Medicaid is really, really hard. And I don't have the money right now as a medical student to pay $200 an hour to get someone to talk to me. And I finally did get to talk to a therapist this summer, and she was interesting. I picked her because she was young. She said that OCD was one of her specialists. Like, she knew how to do that.
This was in Olympia.
In Olympia. Went and saw her. She goes, wow, you know a lot about OCD, and you know a lot about yourself. What do you want me to do? And it's just, so I guess to anyone listening out there, just definitely shop around with your therapist as much as you can. I know, like, you can't, if you're on Medicaid especially, you don't always have access to everybody, but, like, find someone that you gel with, because I was kind of put off by this therapist just because she just seems so much like, what do you want me to do about it? And I'm like, listen to me, you know? So, but then you have really great people, like Taylor Klein at our school. He's amazing. He's very relatable. So you just gotta shop around.
Well, it's just, and, everyone has personal preferences. Like, I've seen some therapists that they take an approach of, maybe it seems like something that maybe you were looking for. They take a more just kind of listening approach, kind of conversation. And I, like, want answers. I'm like, no, like, what does the study show? And, like, I, like, grill the person. I'm like, I don't need someone to talk to. Like, I have my cats and my wife and my cool friends like Megan. And so I do think one of the best things people do, or the best advice I can give about therapy, is think of it as dating. And you have to just kind of follow around, and you're not married to any therapist. Like, I used to love this therapist back in Massachusetts that I saw. But just over time, like, I wasn't getting as much benefit out of it. And I'm glad I ended up changing and just seeing someone else. And I also think it's good I know some people need to see a therapist every week, maybe every other week, forever. Maybe their issues are very, very severe and it's just totally debilitating. But I like to kind of take an approach of, like, it's good to be very consistent with a therapist, but I think it also should, like, consistently go down over time. I think it's very bad to, like, see someone consistently and then just never see them again. But, like, I've been giving someone advice, like, okay, instead of going every other week, you should switch to maybe once a month. And then maybe, like, once every other month. And just, like, kind of slowly start to wean yourself off therapy. But I mean, one of the biggest beefs I actually have with medical school, and not all medical schools are like this, so I am kind of just calling out PNWU. I don't understand why they don't have a student healthcare policy. Healthcare insurance.
Yeah.
We have 146 students in each class that pay a good amount of money to be there. Put another budget item in there. Put us on whatever health insurance policy you're having all the professors and all the maintenance workers and all the other employees on that we're probably giving insurance for. Put them on that same policy. There's more than enough buyers. I get really passionate about this issue, if you could tell. I used to work in insurance, and I threw a fit last year, I remember, at SGA, because I was really, same thing. I was really struggling to find a psychiatrist, really struggling to see a therapist, and I'm like, dude, like, put it as a budget item. I'll pay off the loans eventually. Probably never, but eventually. But and it was stupid. You're part of the SGA. I'm willing to help out SGA and give my insurance knowledge here. But yeah, I think it's totally stupid. And, if we're trying to say we want the best health for our student body, we need to give them access to good health care. And Apple Care is good, but I'm sorry, like, other means are probably a little bit better, a little bit easier to use too.
Yeah, no,
over.
No, but I appreciate that rant because, like, I have to go all the way to Olympia to go see a primary care provider. So it's an issue, and I mean, that's why we're all getting trained as physicians, so we can go back and give back. But I agree. I mean, that's something we could talk to. I
guess, but we're getting trained in science, but how many times have we actually brought up economical issues in our training? Not enough. Yeah. And I came from the economic world, and it's just like, I don't know why we're not talking about that more. Like, we kind of just say, oh, that drug's really expensive. And, like, I get that, but, like, access to care, like, I don't know why we're not talking about insurance issues more.
Oh, yeah, because that's a mess, and, like, I never know what's going on, and then... Yeah. No, I completely agree.
And so, I mean, it's like adding more things to our curriculum. I don't know how they do that. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Just think what it's going to be like for people trying to go into medicine, like, 30, 50 years from now. They're going to have so much more than we do, even, to, like, learn.
Well, here's my thought. Last night, I was talking to my friend about this, Ryan, in our class, who is a computer programmer. I'm like, all right, Ryan, I got an idea. We'll pay off our college loans with this. I'm like, the student body, 30 years from now, the medical student body, 30 years from now, they're, right now, I guess not even born, because I'm 30 now. But either way, they're going to be hardcore into video games, right? Always on their cell phone from the age of, like, 4 on, playing some kind of video games, probably eventually, like, virtual reality. We need to make medical education into a video game. Woo! Yeah, I'm going to make millions. So one of our listeners, hopefully one of the 7 people that tune in, are going to take that idea, run with it, and change the medical system forever. Maybe I'll be a part of it. I don't know. But either way, like, I know I love using YouTube videos and other means of videos. But if there was something more interactive, like a fun game where you, like, run around the hospital as a doctor and you can, like, I don't know, test out your knowledge or something stupid. I just think it would be a very interesting way to approach studies versus kind of this archaic system of go read 70 pages and I'll test you on it tomorrow.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think it'll get more and more like that, though. Because, like, unfortunately, more people are getting ADHD and they can't pay attention to reading stuff.
Well, and it's like, look at how many people go to class. Do you go to class?
Yeah, I go to class, but I'm a nerd. Well, it's mainly because it's a one pass-through. Like, that I can say
I never go to class unless I have to. Yeah. I will use the video tuning in software, whatever Panopto is called. Yeah. And I just think it's more efficient of my time. And I don't like sitting in a classroom for 2 hours at a time. And sometimes when it's a full day of lecture, it's really challenging. And so I think it's easier just to, like, I'll view it at home. If I get bored, I'll pause it. I'll go for a little walk. Yeah. Pet my cat Mustard, hang out, do whatever, and then I'll dive back in and I'll be more focused and engaged versus when I'm sitting in that classroom, I'll just kind of, like, zonk out for, like, 5 minutes. I'm like, what are we talking about? I don't know.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, you got to figure out what works for you. Yeah. And if that is what works for you better, that's what you should do. I mean, I think that's the big thing for people going to medical school is just, like, you have to realize that what works for you doesn't work for necessarily for everybody. So, and what works for you now might not work for you in 6 months even. Yeah. So, or depending on the class or the teacher or whatever. So many different variables.
Yeah. Well, we're at 45 minutes.
Oh, man.
We'll have to maybe do another episode right before maybe boards.
Ooh, yeah.
Big scary boards. Because I think that'd be a good conversation to have. Like, what is it like tackling boards, an 8-hour-long test, when you have ADHD.
Yeah.
And you know, that's challenging for everybody, but just there's different challenges for each person. And I think that'd be a cool conversation. Any last words of advice for people just going through ADHD, maybe prior to diagnosis, maybe they're just starting out with Ritalin, maybe they're whatever. Any last piece of advice for anyone listening?
Just, keep at it. Just know that you're continually changing, your body's changing, the world's changing. Mm-hmm. So, be patient and you'll find something that works for you.
Yeah. And I think you do a great job of just showing, like, you can live with imperfections and treat them and be very successful. You're one of the leaders at in our student government of our class, and you have been getting better academically too. So
which has been awesome.
Yeah,
that's a big stress off my shoulders too, is to not just be passing classes by like 2 points like I was before. Mm-hmm. So that's been really nice.
Well, good. Well, you have some of your best friends coming in this weekend.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Two of my best friends from college.
We're gonna release this episode on Halloween.
Spooky.
So I hope all you guys have a great Halloween. I am dressing up as something. I don't even know.
Yeah, I gotta figure that out. Well, my two friends that are coming, we dressed up as the Gotham girls. So I'm usually Poison Ivy. Okay. And one of them is Harley Quinn and one is Catwoman. So we'll see.
Well, one thing so we're recording this a few days before Halloween, but what I'm gonna do, I'm prepping for, of course, Movember.
Oh yeah.
Listeners, we're doing a Movember, which is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Well, it's not specifically mental health, that's one of the things, but it's prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and men's mental health.
That's good.
So I'm growing out my mustache in advance. Mm-hmm. But on Halloween, I'm going to show up to school with a Fu Manchu, just like shave all that and just like the huge sideburns that grow into the mustache. It's going to be pretty hysterical. Hopefully I don't get kicked out of class for being disrupting it, but I think I'll be okay.
I think you'll be okay. Just,
I mean, look at some of our professors. Their facial hair is hysterical.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes it's out of control.
Yeah,
so,
all right, well, cheers. That was a fantastic episode.
Yes.
Nice job. Salud.
Salud.
Boom.